Good morning and welcome to West Coast Grandma. Elizabeth here again, and today I'm going to do something kind of simple, but I'm also going to do a kitchen tour. So you say, what? Kitchen tour? Well, home all day, everything's coming in out of the garden. So I have a few things on the go. So before we start making my grandmother's never fail pie crust, as she called it, I'm just going to take you and show you just what I've done today and I guess yesterday in my kitchen. Okay, I'm going to start from one side of my kitchen. So first of all, I have my Instapot going. And today I'm doing, these are organic kidney beans. And this Saturday for Thanksgiving, my family's all coming and we're doing a lumberjack theme fire pit simple dinner outside, and I'm going to make chili. So of course, because I like doing things as much, well, I wouldn't say organic, but close to home as I can, I've got these organic kidney beans, which I have in my Instapot, and they're cooking in bone broth that I did. So I'm going to have those done and ready for putting my chili together on Friday. So let's see, what else do we have here in my kitchen? Alrighty. So yesterday I did apple rhubarb chutney. And the apple rhubarb chutney, again, everything was out of the garden. I was using apples that just windfalls. They just keep coming down. And so I hate to throw them out. So I keep trying to make something. So it was my rhubarb and the apples. The only thing it did have is dried cranberries. So like you can see that. It tastes pretty good, a little sweet. If I made it again, I would probably put less sugar in it, but it tastes delicious with chicken, which is, we had some last night. It was really good. I just took these out of the canner. They're still hot. This was the rest of the apples that had fallen. And as you can see, they're different colors. I call this my pink applesauce. It's because it's made mostly with the apples off one particular tree, which we have never figured out what variety it is. The other one falls off the other tree, and it's one of those trees that has 5 varieties, which, by the way, I would never recommend to do. So I did that. I just have tomatoes here ripening because I'm going to make my tomato sauce for my chili out of that. And let's see, I did yesterday also strain my pear strap vinegar. So it's like apple cider vinegar, except I used all the scraps from when I made the pear salsa. And I have a gallon jug of pear cider vinegar that's fermenting. So anyways, we'll get back to what I'm going to do today, which is make my grandmother's never fail pie crust. So I'm just going to show you the book as well here. So let me get my recipe book out. So here we have a shot of my old recipe book, and there's the recipe. I wrote it down from my grandmother, and who would be, God, she'd be probably 120 by now if she was alive. But I always use that one. That is the book that's full of all my great old recipes that I sort of go back to, ones that my mom has passed on to me. Anyway, I'm going to make that, so I'll go through it because I know a lot of people know how to make pie crust, but this one, it is really never fail pie crust. Well, I'm back again, and we're going to put together this pie crust. So I already measured out 5.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and I put in a teaspoon of salt, according to my recipe, and a teaspoon of baking powder, and I'm just using my little whisk thing here to mix that all in before I add the water. So I'm going to tell you how I used to see my grandmother doing it. I can still see her to this day standing here making pastry. So, well, not here, but at her house. So in this measuring cup, 1 tablespoon of white vinegar. And I'm just going to get my tap on nice and cold here. And meanwhile, I'm adding 1 egg into my measuring cup with the vinegar. That's eggs from Karen's farm on the corner, Flatlanders Farm. All right, let me go to the fork, give that a little mix. I ran down this morning and got 3 dozen eggs, so it's always nice. She's always out there, and had a chat with her. She has just the best eggs. They're always so clean and beautiful. So we just fill this with cold water up to 1 cup. That's about it. I'm going to pour that in. And really, that is about it. I'll use my little mixer here. I just wrecked my recipe and I'm going to have to go back and re-measure out everything because I just poured the liquid in and I do not have the lard in yet. So I will be back. Okay, let's try that again. So I just had to dump that whole thing in the garbage because that's what happens when you're trying to film. And if anybody ever said to you that it's easy to film a video, it is not. So we have our flour and I have my teaspoon of salt. So I've got some in here. There, a teaspoon of salt. I'll add a little tiny bit more because it's lumpy. My organic baking powder, 1 teaspoon. There we go. And I've already got my vinegar in here again. I'm going to add my egg again because I'm going to have this all ready after I put the lard in this time. There we go. I can mix it up. I don't know what the purpose of all this is, but it definitely is a never fail pie crust. There's no doubt about that. All right. So, okay, now for the lard, which is the part I had missed. I'll just mix that in. So my grandmother always used tender flake lard. So I always use tender flake lard. Now there is a recipe on the box that's similar. It doesn't have the baking powder in it. So I have half of my tender flake. I'm just gonna roughly cut it in here to my flour. That. I can't believe I did that, just dumped it right in without thinking. Anyway, oh well. All right, so this is the whole 1 pound block of the lard. And I know there is, there's other brands out there, but I always stick to what has always worked for me. And I know my grandmother swore by tender flake, and my mother, she did too. She always used tender flake. So there we are. Now, when I think back as a kid, I can see my grandmother there, and she did all this by hand. So if you don't have one of those fancy little things that I have here that is for like a pastry cutter, then you can still make the good pastry. All you're doing is you just pick it up in your fingers and rub that lard. You just want to get the lard all broken up. You're just blending it in, and at the end, the lard, the little lumps of lard should be like little peas. So I am going to use my little contraption here though, because it is way quicker. And this is just how you blend the lard in to the flour. It just cuts it in. It just has a little series of blades. You've probably seen them before. And I got myself this one just in a kitchen store. It's great. Not that I make pastry that often. I usually make a batch like this, roll them into, balls about the size of a crust, a single crust, and then I put them in the freezer. Because of course they freeze really well. Last year I made apple pies and I got them all ready and then I just covered them really well and put them in the freezer. So I did not bake them, but we had them all year and they just turned out delicious. So I mean, you can do a day of making pies, especially if you've got a lot of apples like I do. And there we have it. So, as you can see, that is like the consistency of little frozen peas, just little crumbs of lard, because that's what melts and makes it flaky. So that's all ready. Now I'm going to add my measuring cup. I'm going to add a tiny bit more water there. There we are. So my 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, fill it up with cold water, and there we are. I guess I didn't mix that as well. There we are. And I'll just use this little whisk. I'm a very messy person in the kitchen too. It always takes me ages to clean up after. In fact, sometimes I send my husband a picture while he's at work of my kitchen because it's a disaster. But then I'm happy because that means I've got lots of things on the go. There, that's probably good enough. And now we have to get our hands in here. So get everything out of the way. And we just want to mix it enough so that it all sticks together. So with pastry, you never want to mix it a lot. Just like making, say, muffins, you know, you add the liquid and you stir it just till it's blended. Well, pastry is kind of similar. You don't want to stir it a lot because also you want to keep it cold. So if all of a sudden I was at this point and I had to, I don't know, run somewhere and I was going to be gone for 15 or 20 minutes, I would just put this bowl right in the fridge. You want to keep it cold. So as I've spilt enough flour here already, I'm just going to put this out onto my counter here. See if I can get it to all stick together. I think so. You don't think it's going to stick together, but it does. See, it's starting to stick together now. There we go. And I am going to make this pie, my pumpkin pies for Saturday. I'm going to do that Friday. So I'm going to finish the video on Friday because I'm going to go through just putting the pie together. And then I'm definitely going to show you the end product because everybody in my family loves pumpkin. And that's actually another thing I did yesterday. I cooked 2 of my little French pumpkins, which are so good for baking. And I've got those in the fridge. So I'm all ready to make my pumpkin pie filling. It'll be delicious. So you see, even though it didn't look like that was going to come together, there it is. There's my ball of pastry. So I will divide this up and get it into the fridge. And then I will come back on Friday when I'm starting to make my pumpkin pies and just show you quickly how we just put that together. Welcome back. I'm going to get busy and make a pie to show you just how I go about doing that. I've had a really terrible time filming this video. Besides wrecking all my ingredients the other day, today I just filmed the whole thing and my mic wasn't working. So I have 2 pumpkin pies in the oven and I am now going to make another one for your benefit. So, well, actually it's going to end up being for my daughter's benefit because I'm going to give it to her to take home when they're here tomorrow. So I've got my pastry out of the fridge. I leave it till the last minute because I want the pastry to be cold. Like I said before, if you have to stop for any reason when you're making pastry, just pop it into the fridge. I think that's part of the key for having it nice and flaky and tender. Alrighty, so I had a bit of flour on my countertop here. This is a great finish for rolling out pastry, this type of counter. It sure doesn't stick that much. It's just pretty good. So let's get a little bit more flour on here. So this is a fairly small pie plate that I have left because my other 2, like I say, are in the oven as we speak. So there we are. We've got that all rolled out. And I'm just going to fold it in half, slide my plate over, and there it is, just like that. I'm just going to pop it onto here. Good. So what I like to do when I have just a single crust, like as in a pumpkin pie, I like to fold the edge under a bit to make it nice and thick. If there's if there's too much pastry like that, I'll just take some of that off, just peel it off. But I'm just going to fold it underneath because I want to have a nice fluted edge on this one. There, a little bit extra here. There we are. We'll just fold all this under all the way along. All righty. So now I'm going to make my edge. And you can do it whatever way you like. Again, I just always sort of picture how I used to see my mom doing it. Surprising how we copy what we've learned as we grew up. There we go. Make that nice edge all the way around. Okay, so there we are. And if you were making a double crusted one and you flued all the edges and you have all the excess, the way that I get that off, again, the way that my grandmother and my mom always did it, was they just hold it in their hand here and just take a knife and go all the way around it. And it takes all the excess off. For this one, I don't have any because it's just a single pastry. All right. So now we're just going to mix up our filling. I'll just try to make this look a little prettier. There we go. After all, it's going to be our Thanksgiving pie. There we are. Okay, so now I'm going to mix my ingredients into my food processor. And I'm doing that just to make it that much easier. Plus, I used my own pumpkin. And it's a little bit stringy still because I just scooped it out of the shell. So it hasn't been pureed yet. So I have 1.5 cups of pumpkin in here. And I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Now this is the monk fruit sugar, sugar replacement. It works well when you're doing baking. So my husband has to watch his sugars. So I'm just going to use that. And I also wanted to show you my recipe book here that I have is the Better Homes New Cookbook. Well, this one, I'm sure I've had it since I was probably 20. So it's fairly old, but you know, it has all the basic recipes like good old, oh, let me turn that off. Like good old dumplings, all those things, basic pancakes. Sometimes the cookbooks I find are a little fancy these days. They have fancy ingredients. Even this one, the pumpkin spices are all the original spice. Nowadays, when you look at a recipe, it says, you know, a teaspoon of pumpkin spice. Well, what is pumpkin spice? So this one has the actual spices. So I will just pop my glasses on here so I can see. So we have 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, and that is my own ginger that I grew and ground. 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. I used the nutmeg pod and I shaved that all nice and fine. So we've got that in here, and 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. So I'm going to pop that in. There we go. All righty. Then we have 3 slightly beaten eggs. So I'll pop that in. Again, from my friend Flatlanders Farm. And what else have we got here? 1 1/4 cups of milk. So there, like I said, I had all this measured out. Second time round today. There, 1 1/4 and 2/3 of a cup of evaporated milk. So there we have it. I'll just rinse my hands off here from the pastry. And we're going to put that blender on, and we're just going to mix that up just so that it gets rid of all the fibers that are still in from the pumpkin. So there we are. We'll put that on here. we'll give that a bit of a stir. Meanwhile, I gotta check my pies, which are done. I'm just gonna grab these out and I will be right back. Well, there we go. There's our little pie shell, and I've now blended all of our filling, and we're just gonna fill this pie shell. We'll leave a little bit of room. Oh, not quite gonna use all that, so that's fine. Alrighty, so I'm going to get this into the oven and I'm going to bake it at 400 for about 50 minutes. I will check it from time to time, and I'll come back when I have my pies all ready so you can just see how great it looks with my no-fail pie crust. Alrighty, we'll catch you back in a bit. Well, here I am with 4 pies I ended out with. Something that I have that was a little bit unexpected for me was I have a new oven, and the oven I had for 17 years, and I got this new oven, and I tell you, like everything else that is replaced these days, it's just not the same. And I had a bit of an issue with it being so hot. I don't know, but anyway, they're gonna taste delicious. I've got 4 pies, the family's gonna be happy, and I hope that you will try my never fail pie crust and give it a try on your own. So hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something. If you'd like to hit the subscribe button and the like button, that would be awesome. West Coast Grandma is signing out.